Welcome back to our show. So we pulled out of Afghanistan, and Biden decided to send back 3,000 more troops to extract the rest of the people that were stuck there. The embassy and other personnel.
Evacuating the embassy?
Yeah. Everyone's
Jesus.
leaving. Everyone's leaving.
After spending billions and billions of dollars on the country, but just that compound said billions.
So all the equipments are being left behind, all the machines, cars, everything's being handed over to Taliban. Free and clear.
Taliban is going to have a garage sale.
Taliban in a week has taken over 3/4 of the country, and the smart dumb analysts think Kabul is going to fall within 90 days. I say a week.
Well, we said that before end of the year. That was wishful thinking, but
I say a week. Whoever these dumb analysts are, they need to get fired because they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. It's going to take a week for them to take over because it's over. Afghanistan is now and will be in the hands of Taliban. But it's not bad news for Iran because the former vice president in the office right now thought by pulling out the troops, it's going to kind of weaken the area for Iran because they think Taliban is going to work against Iran, but it's the other way around. Only because they don't know how Iran functions in that region.
No, because of the 90s, obviously they had a number of Iranian diplomats were kidnapped and beheaded by supposedly Taliban. Taliban said we didn't do it. So recently, the delegation of Taliban and Afghan government went there. Probably most likely they discussed the transition to Taliban rather than trying to peacemaker between them.
Exactly. There was a deal struck between...
Taliban has taken over the border crossing and all that. So a lot of Afghans, actually refugees, have gone to Iran. And so they had the videos and the stuff that the law enforcement, Iranian law enforcement and the stuff, kind of like a welcoming Afghan, because it's the different kind of like immigration, because Afghans is pretty much like we see as a family. They speak pretty much the same language.
Language is very similar,
it's the same. It's not similar. It's the same. It's the same Farsi language.
Vocabulary differences.
No, it's just the same. It's you go to different places.
I know,
in the
bro.
country.
I've been there.
I'm saying there's a language. It's just, we are same people.
It's like a different dialect.
It would be saying like the difference between like Mexicans and Puerto Ricans. Yeah, might be, but the language is the same. The history is the same.
Right.
Even closer than that. But nonetheless, so some people fleeing Afghanistan because they're afraid of Taliban. So they're
moving to Iran.
Right, and Taliban is trying to control the border crossings. And obviously, Afghan government.
Maybe we should ask Taliban to come here to control all borders.
They will do a good job.
Did you hear that? Biden? Did you hear that?
But I think like the assessment is, we are leaving Afghanistan. So if we kind of not necessarily just have Taliban in power, but the thing is, it's not just the Taliban. You have elements of ISIS and other Wahhabi groups that they know that there's going to be...
Along with Al-Qaeda, some Al-Qaedas as well.
Instability in Afghanistan, so they want to revive what the kind of like a base that they had back in 90s, late 80s and 90s, Al-Qaeda had. So actually Taliban, after obviously discussing with Iran, I kind of think that historically Taliban, they just don't want to be outside. They're more tribal than, let's say, to be an Islamic movement trying to take over the Muslim world or other countries. They're more tribal. They just want to say, don't screw with us. We want to live the way that we see and we have lived for thousands of years.
Yeah.
If you come over here, we are going to be rubber shoes and loaf of bread. We're going to sit in the mountain, but we're going to take care of you at the end. And that's proven, like with the Russians, Soviets, US being there 20 years, shows that these people are truly dedicated, very tribal. So, but the thing is, this Wahhabi sects, ISIS-like and other radical Islamic terrorist organizations,
and
right, they're going to seek opportunity to kind of take advantage of that, maybe to collaborate with some elements of Taliban, because when you say Taliban, they are very tribal, so they don't have a very centralized system. It's like um, um, herding a herd of cats, you know. So the
Herd of cats.
herd of cats, yeah, it's very difficult, right? Because everyone's just going to go their own way. So even back then, when you said Taliban, they had a very loose, centralized grip of what some of their factions were doing in different parts of country. So you can have Taliban, let's say in northern part, that is more sensible.
Yeah, but they still had
More,
ranking amongst
ranking, yes, but I'm
the
just saying
people.
they're centralized, very loose. Or maybe over time, then they become more centralized. But I'm just saying, maybe you have an area under some Taliban commanders and leadership that are more humane, much more compassionate, much more humanitarian, and care about the public and all that, safety and all that. And you would have Taliban in some other areas that they would just flay people and just stone people in daylight, and you have seen all that stuff, destroy monuments, whatnot, acting like a Antifa over here, you know what I'm saying?
Oh man, Antifas are wimps, man.
I call them Talifa.
Latifas.
Talifas destroying monuments.
And man, don't compare Antifa to ISIS, bro. That is honestly an insult to ISIS.
But I think overall, one thing that is going on right now that wasn't going on in 90s is how much more Iran has influence throughout the region. Hence, I think actually the Taliban this time around most likely is not going to be the Taliban of 90s. First thing first is a new set of people. And secondly, I think Iran would convince them to be more like them, like it's still going to be Islamic.
Not to be too hard, not to be hardliners, not extremely hardliners.
To be a little bit more compassionate, you know, not to be too violent,
right,
and more caring about the public and the economy, you know, because they have most of their economy is going through either Iran, Afghanistan, and India.
Yeah, so, because Afghanistan as a whole doesn't really have any type of industry.
Export is just
it doesn't have an industry.
Opium and
it doesn't have agricultural industry as they do, but it's very small because Afghanistan as a whole is a very mountainous area. It doesn't have a lot of flat land. But as he said, it's true that the current Taliban, if they want to really succeed, and I think Iran kind of put them in they're going to put them in the right direction, tell them, hey, don't be too violent, don't be this. But the initial takeover is going to be very violent. The initial takeover of the government, the initial takeover of the country, the initial takeover of the sections and areas and regions is going to be very
they
deadly.
Already executed some of the people.
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be deadly. It's going to be bloodshed. There's a lot of innocent people are going to die. A lot of innocent children are going to be probably killed. You know, crossfire or whatever. So it's not going to be a pretty picture. And we shouldn't have been there for this long, period. This was going to happen 10 years ago if we would have pulled out. Same thing would have happened.
We would have spent less money.
We would have spent less money. We would have been in less of a...
We have built infrastructure, handing it over to Taliban.
I mean, the problem is, look, we spend trillions of dollars in Afghanistan, and you would think with trillions of dollars spent there, you would see highways, you would see high rises, you would see like nice areas, apartment buildings,
parks, roads and stuff, but they're going to blow them up.
What roads?
They did a couple of the national highways and stuff like that. So north area, which was very close to Iran.
Do you really think trillions of dollars would have made just a couple of roads?
I mean, I don't know the exact amount, how much was spent, but obviously a lot of corruption.
Of course.
But
what
definitely a lot of infrastructure.
What I'm trying to say is look,
so
they try to bring democracy into a country that doesn't want it. Okay. This is why you
not
have...
a democracy, representative system.
Whatever.
I just don't want to use that word. It's just...
It's the same garbage.
Really,
I mean, look, when you have dumb advisors working for these administrations that don't know anything about the region, don't know anything about the culture, this is the result. You have trillions of dollars wasted, You have thousands of lives wasted, and for what? For what purpose? It was all because of oil, because of money, because of power. That's all it was. And now, basically, we didn't win the war. This is a war that we didn't win. This is a
No, I
lost
mean
war.
Afghanistan to be let's say a little bit more candid as
We
far as
didn't.
like a
I should say we didn't win the occupation. Put it that way.
No, the whole purpose was post 9/11, taking over Iraq and Afghanistan was to have close proximate presence on Iran, which Iran thought they were next. Everybody was saying Iran is next.
Oh, I know
And
that, but
Iran, feeling the threat, start through their proxies destabilizing the situation in Iraq through insurgency and
because
all
they
that.
knew it was coming.
And
They knew it was coming.
right, but I'm just saying, made it very costly for U.S. at the end. But at the same time, Afghanistan with actually very tiny border with China. If we would have presence over there, obviously that would be strategic location
Well, the
to
Silk
be
Road,
proximate
the Silk
China.
Road, the Silk Road has gone back into action. The Silk Road is actually
So-
now being used for transport.
I'm not sure if it goes through Afghanistan. That border is because very mountainous.
Doesn't matter.
But it has very close
It doesn't matter.
land area.
It doesn't. I'm sure there's an
connected to
agreement.
China.
When there was, I guarantee
Right.
there's an agreement. There's no way there hasn't been an agreement.
But I'm saying this is not
Iran-
all about
Iran-
Iran.
Iran
is
can
happy.
wipe out Iran.
China is happy that obviously
Of
there's going to
course,
be no
because
US
now,
presence.
because look, Iran didn't just go make a deal with China for 25 years. I guarantee you, they talked about every single step of the way, like what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, because the plan was for the U.S. troops to be pulled out of Afghanistan, and that's happening now. So basically, that 25-year agreement, it's in play. So Silk Road transport, they have the sea, they have the ocean, they have the control of the ocean. Saudi Arabia is
pretty much all the most of the mass land in Asia.
Saudi Arabia is at this point pointless to be there because Iran controls the Gulf area very easily. So now Iran basically gained the 40 years that it had lost through the sanctions.
Not only that, through Taliban,
Think about it.
if
Think
they
about
do
that.
then the entire Afghan market, Iran can easily dominate their. It has been because a lot of their energy has been going in.
Look,
from
Iran is going to use
East-
Afghanistan as a middleman to import and export to
Yeah.
China, India, and everywhere else.
No, opium too. I mean, that's a massive
Everything,
market.
everything. And you know what's going to happen? They're going to give a cut to Taliban. He's like, hey, bro, just guard the roads for us. We have shipments coming. We have shipments going. Here's your money. Be on your way. You get your cut, regardless of how
We'll see
things.
how it plays out.
This
but-
is, I'm telling you.
But given the fact that Iran's military is more effective now, not only that, so we have to bring it. So they actually trained a brigade called Fatemiyun. So these are the Afghan Shia fighters, very serious
Special
fighters,
forces. Special
very
forces.
good fighters. That Iran used them actually in Syria against ISIS, and they were incredibly brave, and they have done like
Very talented.
fighting ISIS and all that. And not only that, helping the Syrian regime to withhold all the civil war. So now they have that trained Afghan brigade, and they're going to send them back, and they're going to recruit more people. So Iran is not like in 90s that obviously you had the Northern Alliance, which are mostly Farsi-speaking Tajiks and close to Iran, but they were not Iran trained. They are not IRGC trained. These people are not only trained, but they're experienced in warfare. There's nothing, as I've said multiple times, nothing. If somebody has just seen combat in Vietnam and they're old guy, don't underestimate them.
Yeah.
Somebody who's seen combat, that's going to be part of your DNA for the rest of your life. Nothing replaces that experience.
That's the mRNA.
That's your mRNA vaccine. Once
That's
you're exposed to
mRNA right there,
explosions and all
man.
that.
What's
So
your-
they have these fighters and they can actually recruit more. And if Taliban doesn't listen to them, they can really create a headache for Taliban. Or just even the Taliban look up north, because so think about it. Taliban predominantly their leaderships are Pashto. Pashtuns are in the south of Afghanistan. So the Darfur
Bordering
still is a
Pakistan.
Farsi language, but it's a different language. It's like more like a Kurdish. It's just different Pashto.
No man,
But
it's
nonetheless,
different. It's mixed.
50,
It's mixed with
60%
Urdu.
of Afghanistan are Farsi speakers. So even if there are going to be Taliban up there or the Pashtuns, they speak both languages. So up north, I would say like a Kabul, you cut Afghanistan in half. The north part, Iran would have incredible influence. The south part, historically, Pakistan had a lot of influence. But I cannot say that definitely Pakistan is going to have some influence. But I think Iran at this time has much more influence than
And
Pakistan.
of course,
So,
and only I'll tell you that I tell you what, Iran has placed itself so strategically good with both Afghanistan and Pakistan, and I'll tell you why.
so they can
With
maintain
Iran,
the peace.
Iran and
benefit.
Pakistan have opened up a joint. They have a joint border, and what they did was they created a bazaar, like a market at the border.
A free trade area.
You know for what? Currency exchange. For currency exchange. Okay? This is one way of evading sanctions for Iran. See, unfortunately, most of our viewers don't read international news. They don't read the international affairs and Middle East affairs, Middle East news. I do because it fascinates me. I come from that region. I love to read about the region, see what's going on, because as a foreign policy perspective, I like to see what U.S. does to counter their efforts to launder money and evade sanctions and all that stuff. So, on that perspective, you gotta realize Iran has an agreement with Pakistan. If they open up a joint market at the border for people who cross the border between Iran and Pakistan, and they're gonna use these shops, they're gonna use these markets to exchange currencies. That's a huge thing for Iran. That also opens up the pathway for Iran to do import and export of goods, right? So then, now you have Pakistan who feeds Taliban from its northern border. You have Afghanistan, which northern part of Afghanistan is mostly influenced by Iran, like from Herat to Mazar Sharif to I can't remember the other
Kabul,
part. All the way to Kabul. So you have influence, Iranian influence going all the way there. And what Iran did, I want to say about 10 years ago or so.
Giving them power.
What they did was they had Iran would sit down with the clerics up north, the Shias and the Sunni clerics, and basically create some sort of arrangement and agreement between the two parties so they don't fight each other constantly or hate each other constantly. So they created some sort of agreement, so basically join forces to have a better grasp over both parties, both like the Shias and the Sunnis. So they funded these people, they funded these groups, and we were purely blind to this whole thing. Purely blind. We didn't know anything about this because
I mean, that's their backyard. Of course, they know all the people. They have
right.
the connections. They know the influencers.
When you have that kind of influence, basically you have northern part of Afghanistan, you have northern part of Pakistan, with agreement with Iran. South of Afghanistan is basically Taliban influence through Pakistan. It's a big soup. It's a gumbo soup, right? So you had everybody in agreement with everybody.
The other element
of course,
of it is like,
you gotta realize there's gonna be conflict because that's part of the process.
There are going to be external forces that they would want to create instability there.
Of course.
To distract Iran from having influence. So let's say Saudi and Gulf states in
there's going to
general,
be proxy, a lot of proxy.
They're going to be funding a lot of these Wahhabis to create some sort of chaos in Afghanistan. That's given. Now the thing is how Iran would counter that and who is going to win that battle. I think Iran would have an upper hand for two reasons. The reason number one is the entire Middle East is tired of this radical
wars.
Wahhabi ideology and this because they know them, funded by Saudi and Gulf states, and some of them even other countries. They are tired of that. They just don't want. And when Iran approaches them, they see Iran, even with the Kurds in Iraq, bringing stability, bringing business. Yes, they have influence. They do meddle, but in general, they maintain good relations, and by increasing stability, you look at Iraq. Majority of Iraq you had in early 2000s and even in early 2010s and stuff, a lot of massive suicide bombings on daily basis, all these Wahhabi groups and all that, marketplaces, shrines, whatever, whatnot, throughout Iraq. Since Iran created that militia, right, which is loyal to them, is proxy, but nonetheless they brought security and they brought stability. They guard the shrines, they guard the market, they guard all that. So for average people on the street over there, which one would you take? You would be siding with the stability, right? You say, okay, I go and I'm not going to lose my young kid for nonsenseless
basically they go over security. They go over security.
This Wahhabi playing theme of sounding this like a Wahhabi ISIS type or Al Qaeda type, you see their support, like they had a big support in early 2000s because they didn't, mostly they attacked, let's say, Western targets. So they had a lot of base support from the population in the Middle East. But as they start killing a lot of Muslim, a lot of normal people, they have absolutely lost that support. So that means they're not going to be receiving any support and funding from just in general population. So that's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is Iran has a 25-year plan against Israel. That's their plan. Is it going to happen, is not going to happen, I'm not going to say either way. But I'm saying that's their declared plan to get rid of the regime in Israel. They have called, what they call it is like a resistant front. By having allies throughout the Middle East with leadership of Iran, because, so let's put it this way, the Arab Israelis, they had multiple wars, Arab countries, not including Iran, Sunni countries, the Egypt, the Six-Day War, and the wars in the 60s and whatever not, I don't know, recall the exact dates, it's 1967. Yeah. So the population in the Middle East is against having a Jewish state, Jewish government in charge of Holy Land. They are not, a lot of people, they are not necessarily against Jewish people. They have a lot of Jewish people living throughout the Middle East. They have lived for thousands of years. They are against a Jewish government in charge of Holy Land. They want the Muslim to be in charge of Holy Land. Mm-hmm. They have fought crusades for 300 years between Christians and Muslims to be in charge of that Holy Land. That hasn't gone away and is not going away. Okay? So that's the second thing. So Iran has created these allies from Lebanon, from Syria now, Iraq, all these proxies, right? So it's saying, Iran is not saying, oh, I want to get rid of Israel because I want to get rid of Israel. He said, no, they want to get rid of the Israeli regime because they said, we are doing this in the name of Islam. Okay? So even though that they are Shia, given the fact that they have been doing all this stuff, and usually the areas that they're in charge with, they are very compassionate toward the local people. They're very... you see, like they're really disciplined. So let's say the Shia militias, they don't go around beheading people. You know what I'm saying? They do fight the ISIS, but
they're not as violent.
Local, not at all. So they're more like they show themselves as protectors. I mean,
traditionalists, very protective, very conservative. They want to protect the culture.
That's their message, right? And then the people in the region, the more of this alliance that they create, they don't have to have the government's backing. Like, forget about the Iraqi government. Obviously, they have a lot of influence over the Iraqi government. But when they have that force over their armed and loyal to Iranian supreme leader as their leader, spiritual leader, to say what to do, that's their loyalty is. So it's going to happen the same. They're going to play the same playbook in Afghanistan, create some sort of proxy over there.
Yeah.
I guarantee you they're going to create some other version of Fatimiyun or just the Fatimiyun itself. They're going to create that, and that's not only going to have checks and balance on Taliban, but it's going to have more influence within Afghanistan as well. But what I said with this like a Wahhabi movement that they did for the past 20 years since 9/11, Saudi Arabia and Gulf states, they have lost the moral high ground in the Middle East.
Yep.
So meaning now they have become
This is
they have become a hated states.
Yeah. This is basically going to be a to be continued process because this is a very new.
It's a very complicated.
It's complicated, but it's still fresh.
It's going on in multiple countries.
So we're gonna have to. I truly am gonna monitor this very closely because it definitely piques my interest. And with that, guys, we're gonna end it today. Thanks for watching. Please hit that like button, share this video, hit the subscribe button, tell your friends about our channel. Yep, hope for the best. I mean, we all want peace in the Middle East, and that's kind of a high hope, but, you know, we hope it happens.
We just want to express the reality of the ground, the way that we see and analyze it.
Enough death in the world.
But the reality, you have to be able to...
These people need a break, man. I honestly, I feel very, very sorry for people in Afghanistan.
Wishful thinking doesn't get anybody anything. You have to be realistic. Okay,
of
this
course.
is going on.
Yeah.
What is going to happen? What are the precautions? What are the consequences?
Yep.
What can be done? What are the approaches? Well, just as an observer,
yeah.
You know, that just informing you in general what's going on in the region.
Yep. All right, guys. We love you. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button.
God bless you.
We see you guys later.